Welcome to Black Athletes Who Paved the Way, where we honor the fearless trailblazers who stood at the intersection of sports and social change. I'm Monica Pearson. Today we shine the spotlight on the life and achievements of one of the NFL's most iconic figures, Jim Brown. Throughout his Hall of Fame career, Cleveland Browns running back Jim Brown redefined the game of football, setting records and benchmarks that still stand today. Off the field, he used his platform to champion civil rights, working tirelessly to advocate for racial equality and community empowerment up until his death in May of 2023 at the age of 87. This Black History Month, we celebrate Jim Brown's legacy with a complete re-airing of his 2017 appearance on The James Brown Show, where he reflects on his pursuit of greatness, not only in sports, but also as a pioneer for change.
Today's legendary guest could certainly challenge Jim Thorpe as the finest athlete America has ever produced. He excelled at baseball, basketball, and was an All-American in lacrosse at Syracuse before he established himself in the world of football there at Syracuse, and of course with the Cleveland Browns as, according to the Sporting News, the greatest football player of all time. Plus he was a movie star, I wish I could have done that, and a social activist. My pleasure to welcome to the set none other than the great Jim Brown. Jim, good to see you, sir.
James.
Hey, please.
Thank you.
Hey.
That's a very flattering interview. I appreciate it, though.
Oh, hey, it's all true.
Might be a little exaggerated, but...
You know, what would I have exaggerated on in that?
Well,
nothing.
Thank you.
Hey, I can go to any barbershop in the hood or in the suburb, and folks still agree with what I just said about that, Jim. You were that remarkable an athlete all around. But lacrosse, I mean, when did you get turned on to lacrosse?
Junior high school. Plandone Road School in Manhasset, Long Island. It was very popular. I'd never played it before. I took up a stick, practiced in my backyard, and went on to become an All-American at Syracuse. I love the history of it, and I love the way that you could hit someone with a stick. you can outrun them.
Right.
You can dodge them. You can go lefty-righty. You can shoot underhand, overhand. And it didn't matter what your size was, you had to be quick and fast.
We talked about the sports that you were superb at, and maybe an obvious question, but people would think it's football, but was football your favorite sport?
I basically played the sport that was in vogue during a particular season. But sometimes two sports are in one season. I played a lacrosse game, and then I went and played a football game the same day.
In the same day?
Same day.
Jim, that's flat out remarkable. I couldn't play them in the same week, and you talk about playing in the same day. Jim, and we're going to talk about so much as well, too, but look, this is just my own fantasy right now. What was it like in the movies, starring alongside of the likes of Raquel Welch? And I hope Monique doesn't mind me asking these questions. I'm respectful to the wife, but tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you know, at the time, there was a racial thing about who could play against who, if you could talk to a Caucasian lady.
In the movies, as a love interest?
Yes. And it was a matter of the producers deciding that they would pull Miss Raquel Welch aside, let her read the script, and see if it would bother her to play opposite me. And she said, hell no. Raquel is bad. And so we got together and had a ball. She was a great lady, and she did break that taboo with us because we were the first interracial couple of a major production in Hollywood.
Did you ever think that acting was going to be in the career?
Well, I didn't think in the beginning, but I got offered a part while I was still playing football, Rio Conchos. And I had a great friend by the name of Phil Gersh. He was a great agent. And he said, look, take the part, let me represent you. And when you retire, I'll have a couple of movies waiting on you. So Phil took over my career. I did the Rio Conchos, got decent reviews. And then the next show was The Dirty Dozen with a great cast led by the great Lee Marvin. And I was like the junior guy, just coming out of football. And they took me under their wings and helped me tremendously and allowed me to adjust so I became a decent actor.
Jim, but then you talked about when you retired. And again, that was after only 9 years. And I know it's been talked about so often, but why 9 years? I heard you give an answer that was awesome. Why just 9 years when you were tearing it up?
I studied a lot of people that came along before me, and a lot of them that were really great played too long. They overstayed their welcome, and their legacy was tarnished. And so I said to myself, I never want to play longer than I should. So I prematurely retired so that my legacy, when I'm talking to you about it, you can't do a doggone thing about what I did because it was the right thing to do.
We have a lot more to talk about with the great Hall of Fame running back, Jim Brown, after this.
Black Athletes Who Paved the Way is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Make your moves, we'll make them count.
I'm here with Hall of Fame running back, the football legend himself, Jim Brown, who was the NFL rushing champion. Check this out, folks, in 8 of his 9 seasons, and retired, as we just talked about, the league's career rushing leader. All-Pro tackle Alex Karras had this to say about Jim Brown. He said the only way to stop him was to give each guy on the line an axe. Not a real pretty thought, but Jim, that was how tough you were out there. How challenging, how tough was the game, if that's the case, versus today?
When I played against Hall of Famers, guys that I see today, I don't care what age they played in. I don't care what era they played in. They had greatness. But their greatness was always different. It was never two guys that had the same kind of greatness. So you really couldn't measure it. But when you deal with what the Hall of Fame represents, you don't want to measure it because you're all Hall of Famers. So when we went to Israel not too long ago, there were 18 Hall of Famers with me. And it was unbelievable because the humbleness of being in that land was so prevalent among our players. And the love that we shared with each other and the respect that we shared with each other could only come if you were Hall of Fame. I mean, other people can have the respect, but to go through the wars of being a great football player, it's a little different because it's highly physical. And then when you come out of it, you've had all you can take because there's always somebody ready to go around with you, regardless of how long you stay there. There are no shrinking flowers there. Every one of those guys have a toughness. So, you know, I don't like to compare. I like to give credit for those who, like Eric Dickerson. Why would I compare myself to that guy? He's beautiful. He's got a long stride. He can cut. You know, he can jump. And he's a great guy. So I'm going to give Eric all the credit in the world. But it has nothing to do with me demeaning myself because I think I had a good career also.
You mentioned Israel. You and your wife, Monique, traveled with, as you mentioned, 18 other Hall of Famers over to Israel. A trip started by Israel's ambassador to the U.S., Ron Dermer, when he realized that Hall of Famers here and around the globe have helped to move things ahead in society because of what they did on the football field. But spiritually, what was that experience like for you, Monique, and the other Hall of Famers going to Israel?
My first trip, I went twice, but my first trip was the greatest trip I'd ever had. It was very mind-boggling for me. Then when I went back with this group of Hall of Famers, and I was like the old guy. I always said football was like war. But I went to a country that had 5 other countries around it that did not mind wiping it out. I saw women that were obligated to serve for 2 years in the armed forces.
Young ladies.
I saw men, that's right, I saw men that was obligated to serve 3 years. That meant everybody was a soldier. And everybody was a soldier with a resolve that was unbelievable. Now, I'm coming away from football players, Hall of Famers, I'm with Hall of Famers, and these guys are tough, and these guys have a resolve. But the resolve of that Israeli, something I had never seen before. And I could only admire it, because when I look at my culture in America, I'm an African American in America, but I'm an American first. Rather than African American, we've struggled to deal with equality, but we haven't applied ourselves the way we should have. I think our leadership looked at integration as an answer when it really was self-determination, in my opinion, okay? So here I am looking at that Israeli and seeing all of the things that I wish that our African-American brothers in this country had applied to our community.
You've always used your platform to shine a spotlight on those who need it the most. That's always been a part of you. Like to hear more about that,
Okay.
and we will when we come back with more with Jim Brown. The Hall of Famer Jim Brown talking about his trip. He and Monique went to Israel, the second trip sponsored by the Hall of Fame, if you will, to Israel. And Jim, to complete your story in terms of what you saw there in Israel and how you're going to apply some things here in the States.
The Jewish community have been through a lot. You go to the Holocaust, and then you come to creating a state. And the African American community have gone through a lot. The difference is that the Jewish community seemed to apply the principles that allows you to be successful. My community has to catch up with that. We have to get away from the concentration on integration as such and deal with self-determination. And I say to all my gangbangers out there that are killing each other, that I try to work with to get them to understand different life, I say, you guys should make this African American community the safest community in the world. And everything will happen in a positive way if you do that.
I was about to ask you, in your program, American, Jim, you've been passionate about this for a while. Are you seeing it take root in terms of attitude changes amongst gangs and those at prisons? Talk to us.
Law enforcement is definitely needed. We respect law enforcement. But law enforcement in a community can't do certain jobs. But law enforcement will take advantage of the jobs that a community organization have done when the crime rate goes down. And it's a little unfair because the resources that you have to get to apply to the efforts that you make are not going where they should go, in my opinion. Because if law enforcement gets all the resources, but they are limited because they are law enforcement, if you're a social activist, you're not limited. You work within the law, but you can do things to ingratiate yourself with the community and work with the direct problems of the community, not just enforce the law.
You and Monique have a 10-part documentary that Showtime is going to be showing. Talk to us a bit more about that and what was the genesis of that.
Well, you know, the Zemlis brothers, very talented writers, producers, have basically come together with Showtime. And we're going to have, I think, a 6-part series on the Muhammad Ali Summit. The summit was created back in about '66 when the top black athletes came together at my request, and I say that with humbleness, to support Muhammad Ali if his reason for not going into the service was genuine, if he was a legitimate, conscientious objector. And we came together in Cleveland. About 12 of us met. Carl Stokes, who was former mayor of Cleveland, was there, and we grilled him for about 5 hours. And he came out like a shining star. He was totally convincing. It was real. It was not a hoax to get out of the Army, and we backed him. And eventually, I think the Supreme Court reversed his situation, and he became a free man.
But your group went through a 5-hour discussion to find out if he was legitimate, and he was about 25 years of age at that point in time. Yeah. What convinced you that he was real, Jim?
Well, I'll tell you, I was convinced the night before because he stayed at my house, and we had the conversation, but I didn't let everybody else in on it.
You wanted them to make their own minds up?
Yeah, I wanted them to make their own minds up. I wanted them to ask the questions they wanted to ask, and I wanted it to be a full-blown discussion. And Muhammad Ali was a special human being. And when we were at the house, he really had a lot of concern about the condition of black people in this country. And his logic was, as a Muslim minister, he could do something about it here.
I like to find out, with the fact that the athletes are being more socially active now and talking more about it, is that the direction you want to see them going or not? We'll get those answers from Jim Brown when we return. As we come back and continue our conversation with Jim Brown, and I certainly have big respect with what you said before about not comparing styles of players from different eras, because greatness is greatness. I do know that you feel that athletes certainly have the ability to be more impactful in terms of society. The fact that athletes are speaking out now more, being more socially involved, a good thing? How can it get better?
Well, let me say to you, the athletes today have benefited from the athletes of yesteryear. The business has grown. The franchises are worth billions now, okay? The money that the athletes receive today is ugly. I couldn't imagine getting $18 million in 1 year. Now, if I had $18 million in 1 year, I'd be the greatest social activist that ever lived. Because
you still might be thought to be that, though, Jim, without it, but go ahead.
I'll tell you, man, the amount of money that these individuals make and the influence that they have, if they got together collectively and pool those dollars, get a national fund, and use their influence as far as dealing with the intelligence and the education that these young people have, it would make a difference in this country within 2 to 3 years.
Why are you so passionate about that, Jim? Why have you been so concerned about the gangbangers? What motivated that with you?
Well, I saw my father 4 times in my life. My mother was 15 years old when she had me. My great-grandmother struggled with me as a young kid. I met the greatest men in my life at Manhasset High School. My high school coach, my high school superintendent, a fellow student who was advanced to me, who became a judge, who guided me, who emphasized education, who took an interest in me, who got nothing out of it other than helping a young man. And without them, I would be nothing. And so with all the so-called glory, the championships, or the trophies, and in my heart, I was just a young man that had the benefit of some great people taking an interest in me, and with nothing for them to gain other than my advancement as a human being. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna give back everything that I can give back in my own way. Be an individual that can use my influence, my intelligence, my money, my attitude, to be able to get to a Ray Lewis, and to have Ray be able to maximize his ability, or Curtis Martin, or all of those individuals out there in the communities that allow me to come in that community and work with them. So that's where I'm coming from.
It also sounds like a Hall of Fame attitude as well, too. For the football fans to hear and see more about you, 1957 a rookie. You guys get to the NFC Championship game, and you get there against the Lions. Talk about what that experience was like. You didn't win it then.
It was new for me, and it was a slaughter. I mean, that's all I can say.
A slaughter.
They ate us up.
But you gave it your best.
Well, yeah, but I didn't even look at it that way. I just looked at the efficiency of them, and I gave them total respect for the way they put that licking on us. See, sometimes you gotta admit when you get whipped.
Loud and clear.
Sometimes you just get whipped and nothing you can do about it. So a real champion will admit when he got, when he got whipped.
Simple
and
as
he
that.
will tell you when he whipped you.
Well, you got that opportunity in '64 in the championship game against the Colts. I appreciate your candor about '57, so what about '64 then, when you did win it?
Well, they had the great Johnny Unitas, Lenny Moore. They had a great team. They were favored by about 3 touchdowns. I think we beat them 27-zip. Everybody played their role, and every athlete did a heck of a job.
Jim, it would be unfair not to close it out by saying, as passionate as you are now in the game of life, wanting to be a champion in the game of life, we're dealing with some pretty serious issues in the country, but yet you think you have a solution that's not that complicated?
It's a very simple solution. You want me to give it to you?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
If I try to be the best human being I can be, and if I reach out to help people that need help, and if that is done and multiplied, we'll have a beautiful world.
Jim Brown, Hall of Fame, on the field and off the field. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
You're the Mr. Brown. That's Mr. Brown.
Jim Brown's legendary talent on the football field was matched only by his lifelong commitment to the fight for social justice. Today, Brown's legacy lives on through his Amer I Can Foundation, which promotes education and life skills development in underserved communities. Thank you for watching Black Athletes Who Paved the Way. I'm Monica Pearson. We'll see you next time.